Hey, it's Juan Zapata. You guys know me from real life, surely, or from Indigenous Podcast. I'm on there with Marcus Gruwell. We have our batch of haters on there as well, and I'm sure we'll have our batch of haters on this channel too. So I'm just gonna forewarn you. This is John Quez Rogers, my best friend. Here we want to cover a wide variety of topics. A lot of it, I'm not gonna lie, is gonna be social issues, just social commentary, and some people are not gonna like what we have to say. Well, because I like to think we're more common sense based, but when common sense, some people don't like common sense. So that's why we call it the true slaps, because we're not pulling punches here. So you may get triggered, you may not, you may like us. We're just warning you already. It's kind of like Abba and Priest style. You might really not like us. It just depends if you're really far left or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's not really about agendas. So just making a point to certain things, but. Yeah, so that's kind of our aim here.
So this first topic that we're going to cover is something we've discussed all the time, like literally on whenever we go to dinner or something, right? Is just wealth building. And people, as we've gotten older, obviously now I'm like 23. I'm a little older. I'm a little younger, right? I'm a little more in my golden phase than John Quez. I'm slightly more, less deteriorated, right? So he's 24 by a couple months, right? But anyways, as we've gotten older, we've realized, we've left behind a lot of our peers, and some of our peers have really left us behind. And we notice these differences based off of success. Like, what steps are we all taking individually? And a lot of people had really brilliant plans that they would talk about in high school or early college. And they sounded like, oh my God, like this person's going to make it really far. They're really going to get somewhere. And then you see all the life factors that happen that really derail those plans. And it's just, we just thought it'd be an interesting topic to talk about this, especially because the title of the video you guys will see, or you're seeing it now, is those that are handed silver spoons and what they do with that wealth that their parents give them. So,
yeah, I guess letting it rust at that point. Super common thing, sad but super common thing. You catch a lot of people, they get those opportunities, and like you said, you see them, they'll present a plan to you. I'm in college, I'm trying to get this degree. This degree is going to help me do this job. Certain things they don't expect are going to interrupt that, whether that can be something as like having a child, being in a toxic relationship, something in their home life, it doesn't matter what it is, those things derail it. Some people, paraphernalia, drugs, etc., criminal behavior, things like that. And others, they just don't study exactly what the market is looking for what it is that they went to school for. So it's ambitious, and maybe they weren't ready for what those courses had to offer. And it's like, okay, well, now this is difficult for me. I'm gonna have to change my major. I'm forking out more money for school. I'm now in debt in this particular way. Or as simple as I got it done, but I couldn't get an internship, so I started working these jobs. These jobs introduced me to these bad people. Here I am. A lot of different ways that can go down. But all in all, the most important thing to realize is that there's certain people who have that silver spoon effect, and they don't realize that they had the chances. They were already there. And then on the alternate end, there are people that they do it. It's just depends on what was there, the foundation, their parents. Usually discipline is the thing you're going to notice when people are doing that, is that their parents, though they had the silver spoon, they didn't treat their kid like that was what made them important. That's what made them special. The validation from that was never going to happen without them actually putting work in. Because then eventually they were supposed to create their own wealth, not just live off the back of their parents.
Right, and that goes into how somebody was raised. So we have a friend or acquaintance. His parents very well off with money, very well off family. However, his parents would actually make him work for things like his gaming systems, or they just constantly have him in a state where he would have to earn his stuff. They wouldn't just hand him a bunch of money and call it a day.
Yeah.
And even though he came from a rich family, that fostered that sense of, hey, I got to do this shit on my own. I gotta make do, because if you hand everything to your kid, they're gonna get spoiled. They're gonna think that they just deserve it all. And I've seen that a little bit with my own brother, but he's pulling through. Hopefully, helping him out. But it's just because a lot has to do with how you treat the kid. And if you screw it up though from the start, it's so hard to change that. It's so hard to go back and be like, yeah, let me just like a computer program. Let me fix this computer program. It's really hard to do that with a human. Like, once you that's what some psychologists say, is that our parents raising us, they're installing a computer program in us, right, that we operate by for the rest of our lives. So that's why it's really important to get that computer program right when you have your own kid. Yeah. Obviously, we don't have children, but that's what psychologists say. So, I mean, surely they know something.
And I had a major point to what you were talking about. There's a difference with how your parents' financial situation was between raising you and then having your brother. And a lot of times you have that difference where, the parent may have been struggling at one point and then they weren't anymore. And, the difference in how that child is raised happens in those moments.
Right. I mean, I guess one reason why I didn't ask my parents for a lot of things growing up is because when they didn't have a lot of money, when I was like younger, like less than 10 years old, I could like whenever I asked for something, they would say, "Oh no, we don't have enough money," or if they did buy me something, I could kind of notice like, oh, like it's gonna hit them a little bit. I could pick up on little things like that. So it kind of got built in me like I'm not gonna ask for anything because then that's an inconvenience, and then I'm taking money away from them, and now I feel like a piece of shit. So that's why I didn't do so much of that when I was growing up. Yeah,
you get used to when they can outline a sense of their situation, even if they don't directly have to say it to you. It does give you that position. I mean, for myself, I didn't ask because we weren't in a household where we're just asking for things we're going to get yeses. We weren't really spoiled as it was. Also financial situations as well. But if people scale up sometimes in those moments and then they don't want their kids to suffer, and then it gives a bad perspective because then that child then believes they can get everything and that it's going to kind of just fall in their hand, and then they treat life like that. So whenever they go into other things like school and whatnot, they struggle to actually have to put in hard work because they haven't witnessed having to do it. They know when to really have to make them do it in those moments. And you can get why the parent does it because, you don't want to repeat the same position. You want your kids to feel better than you felt. Or if they had a kid before that had to suffer, they're going to try to pick it up from that point. But it's like that with every element of parenting, honestly. Like if you have siblings, you realize that usually your younger ones end up getting it easier because the parent is starting to learn or conform methods or become more lenient. Same thing with the finances. And as they are getting older, they're getting more from it. The younger kids usually get more from it as well. But on the flip side, that can make people spoiled, silver spoon effect in accident, and they blow the opportunities given by it.
Yeah, it's a fine line. I think the whole let me provide all these resources for my child, but at the same time it could be a double-edged sword because then you can spoil the personality, and then they don't want to do anything themselves, and then they, instead of becoming this rock star successful person like you're planning, they kind of become a complacent failure. So it's a really, really fine line, I think, when it comes to that. That's one thing I think about when it's like, oh, when I have kids, how am I going to do it? They say, I've talked to plenty of parents, and they say that there's no instruction manual, obviously, on how to raise a kid, right? But one thing I've thought about, one idea is with my, if I have a son or daughter, I'm not going to tell them I'm going to pay for their college. I'm going to say, oh yeah, I don't got the money to pay for your shit. You're going to have to do it yourself. And then that'll drive them to go get a scholarship. And if they fail at the end of the day, well, and they've tried and they've gotten some stuff or whatever, even if they haven't gotten it, but I just want to see them try, right? I want to see that hard work. Then I will be that safety net. I'll be like, yeah, of course I'm going to help you once they turn 18. But up until they turn 18, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to fucking help you. Just to put that pressure, because this is a reference to weightlifting. What makes you grow is time under pressure, right? Yeah. So putting that pressure on them to be like, yeah, let me figure this out myself. Let me fly myself. Let me grow my own wings rather than let me just count on dad to do everything.
The sense of making progress in that way. You gotta, you can't. Kids, when it comes to that situation, because parents, they want to be able to help them, so that makes this struggle there, especially if they have it in their hands, because you get that a lot where Like, especially when they can see that they didn't get that help, then it ends up being that way more so. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different methods to go about that, honestly. But I do think the thing is that you can't, even if you show your hand of wealth to the child, no matter what you end up doing, it can't be clear that that's just a well just to freely grab from. Yeah. That's the thing that matters the most in that. So, I guess to anybody out there who's considering that kind of stuff in that future. But yeah. So silver spoon. It's a big problem for a lot of people. Major problem.
Right, like the main issue is just that lack of drive with the silver spoon effect.
Yeah,
that's the main problem I see is a lack of drive and ambition. So you can't match the wealth, because I think that's the two factors. Like if you have a bunch of wealth handed to you, you have to have the ambition to match it, to make something out of it. Otherwise, you're not really. It's just gonna fall apart in your hands. Like you're just maintaining it at best. You're not growing anything.
And generally, the people you see have that ambition is because they started off without the wealth in the first place. The ambition was the thing that existed, drove them to have the wealth, and afterwards, that was the case. Because they usually say pain breeds success. Usually, you're gonna find the person who has that in a position of their life being jacked up in any sort of sense. So, I would say that you got to introduce those stresses to your kid. They have to have some semblance of what life is going to present to them and working things out like that. And even for your own self, if you're in a position, no child, you have to get used to training yourself in a way where it's like, let me create discipline in something. Because a lot of people are used to having, things done for them. And then when it goes south, it doesn't work. Like a good example for my own self is that there was a time period in which I had some financial struggles because I was at a job in which I wasn't being paid well enough to handle things with my bills. So at the time period, I wasn't ambitious enough to think about methods of how I would get out of that other than just leaving that job, not trying to increase my income, not even dueling a job, which is what I did to fix the problem. Well, I guess not fix the problem, but more or less like that was my way of understanding discipline after it was over. I was in, later on, my financial situation wasn't really a problem. And I've been given the opportunity to be at a place to work during my off days. And I took it, even though I didn't need it. So, in saying that, the reason why it happened was I saw my deficit that I had in the past whenever I didn't have that discipline, when I didn't have that drive. And this comes from someone who's hasn't been handed things in their life, but still I was comfortable because I had a roommate that was able to back bills, etc. And then I let it slip because of taking that opportunity, or what I thought was an opportunity at another job, and it backfiring on me. And I didn't do anything to try to lift myself up from that. So whenever I was in a better position, I'm like, despite that, I need to have discipline in this because I've been in the spot where that was something that would have been suitable then. So for anyone really, when things are seeming nice, still exercise ambition, still exercise drive. Don't just sit still and not do anything. If you're a kid and your parents are having things for you, you still have a hobby, still have something you drive towards, something that you got, or that it's only responsible for you to complete that thing, because it gives you that sense of perspective where you're like, well, everything in life, it doesn't come like this. You're lucky. That's the thing. You're lucky, blessed in reality. So if that's the case, be happy about it, but don't take it for granted.
Right, I agree with that. The whole lifestyle, because I mean, a lot of people are watching this. You're probably our age or older, right? So it's just the whole fostering that lifestyle where it's like, let me have that ambition. It's just creating that ambition. Like you don't have to go balls to the wall. Like it's just like little things. Like especially with your money. Money is very, very important, and a lot of people are not smart with their money. I'll give you an example. I read, what was his name? It was a Total Money Makeover. I forgot who made it. But the Total Money Makeover, that's the book I read by Ramsey. I believe that's the last name. Yeah, Ramsey. Sorry, I had a
David
brain fart.
Ramsey.
David Ramsey.
Yeah.
I had a brain fart there. My bad. Anyway, I read his book, and he suggested an emergency fund. And boy, that is a genius idea because I've had to use it like on the car repairs before, right? And the reason why he recommends that is so you don't go into debt. A lot of people are in debt and they don't get out of debt; they just get stuck in it. I've seen this with acquaintances where they're heavily in debt, and it really nerfs you. You know, like to use a video game reference, it freaking nerfs you in real life. It really does because you can't build your wealth, and you. So if you have a bunch of debt, if that's like student loan stuff, well, then you're going to struggle to get a car. You're going to struggle to get a house because you have all that debt to pay off. And what do creditors look at? They look at how much debt you have and your ability to pay that shit. So that's where you want to avoid it. So anyways, the emergency fund, excellent tool. David Ramsey recommends $1,000. That's how much I have in mind. Obviously, I'm going to add more to it. That's just the low end, right? That's a minimum. But $1,000 because something breaks down. That could most likely cover a repair with your car. Most of the things that'll pop up probably, right? Or just something in your house craps the shit like the dryer or something, right? You got the fucking $1,000 to handle that. So just it feels safe. Like when I have that $1,000 emergency fund, I feel safe. I'm just like, okay, well, if something fucking happens, I got my safety net, man. And it's because I created it. It's not me pulling out the credit card because it's not really safety.
That contributes to the problem at that point. Yeah. Because a lot of people view credit card as if it's extra money, and that goes back into the spoiling sense of yourself. You have to recognize them like a credit card is not. It's designed to help you show your proof of being able to pay something. Yeah. But that's where it draws the line. It isn't money.
Yeah. So some people get really excited, man. They're like, "Oh my god, I have a $10,000 limit. I'm so badass!" Like they say it like as if they have a $10,000 in the bank. And it's like that's not the same thing, bro.
Yeah. I was like, well, could you pay $10,000 for something right now? Is that something you would like to consider? I'm like, no. Yeah. So, and I think sometimes that also fools people because you, in the sense of like what we're talking about with children. There are cases where parents let kids have credit cards freely. So
my little brother should not be somebody that has a credit card. He's about to turn 18, man. But God bless him, he should not have. Yeah,
because I mean, like these are kind of people that recognize they just see the dollar limit, and because it's not really their responsibility to make that dollar limit come back whenever it becomes a balance. I was like, that becomes the thing where it's like, well, there was no reason for them to have that, and they don't understand it, which I guess is a major problem of our educational system.
Yeah, because see, in school they didn't teach anything about taxes. They didn't teach anything about really wealth building, about stocks. They didn't really. I mean, I know you said you took some financial class,
but that was an elective.
That was an elective. See, I went all 4 years. I didn't even know about this class, bro.
Yeah,
this should be a fundamental class. Like you have to take this shit.
Yeah, that's the thing I didn't understand about that. Because in that class, you were able to do... I mean, some of the stuff, there was like this sense of trying to like make things sort of fun in like an economic sense. But you did do a legitimate stock exchange and got to see how you could have a spreadsheet run in Excel as it adds up your numbers and calculates through it. You were supposed to understand how your taxes were. You filled out mock 1099s, and you got to see what W-2s were like well before you really were doing anything with them. Because if you had a job in high school, your taxes were more like your parents took you to H&R Block and they said everything for you. So it was like you really didn't have much of that. Getting used to seeing what a job application would be like, certain things like that. It's just you have to be in contact with that stuff, because in a sense of like where parenting can fail, schooling can fix things. Yeah. And it tries to on a lot of things, but it's definitely failing in the financial department, because that's something that most kids really have no idea about. They just think things are free. And you notice these are the people that are in one position. They're in school. The parents are paid for their clothes. They're coming in fresh Nikes, fresh J's, everything all the time. They're braggadocious about it all the time. And then next thing you know, when they're having to use their money to do stuff, you realize like, oh, my income really isn't that much. I'm starting off in life. It doesn't come that easily. And then they see themselves backtracking, and they wonder why the people that they were like kind of insultful towards, because it's always backwards. The one that's on the high end of the scale, they end up coming down to where they thought someone else was at, even sometimes lower. And then you have that person that rose up because they already knew that they were working at that point, and they were trying to learn everything then. And that's one thing that I would recommend to most people. Like, if you are young, obviously, like, freaking take a finance class. Yeah. And if not that, just watch stuff on YouTube.
Read the Total Money Makeover.
Yeah, read that book. If you're in a situation where you're like, maybe you're getting your first car, what I did, I sat there and talked to the lady who was doing my loan the entire time, just trying to understand things. I'm looking over all that paperwork. You get a thick old packet the entire time. They're like, read this shit. And you're like, well... I don't know what these percentages, how this is going to break down into my loan. A lot of people don't even know what APR is. And I was like, and it's like a pretty simplistic acronym. And I'm like, we got a chance to break down different type of percentages in that class. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the other thing. So a lot of people just don't look at it that way.
No, and then like this is something I have a big issue with, and people are gonna give me shit for this one, but it's the whole societal big car status bullshit. That I'm gonna burst here because everyone is obsessed with cars. I'm not a car guy. I'm gonna put that out there for you guys right now. I don't give a fuck about cars. All right, so all right, I have a shitty 2000 Honda Accord. All right, but you know what? I got it when I was like 17, and it's still working for me. I'm almost 24. Right? I only had to change like the starter one time. I got into tune-ups and oil changes. That's it, bro. And so I got my house. I have a house at 24, right? But I got a shitty car, right? So which one do you think's better? If I had a fucking 2020 car that I'm still paying on, or a house? Yeah. Pretty sure the house is gonna take the cake. And see that I just see so many people where they are, and there's nothing wrong with renting, right? There's nothing wrong with renting. But let's just say you live in a really rundown fucking apartment, really rundown, and yet you got a 2020 Honda Accord or some shit, man. Or you're living in a trailer and you have like the newest GMC like truck.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense. Like the truck's worth more than the fuking trailer house. Like,
yeah.
It's like that's where the spending your money and the assets and the return comes into play. It's all about being smart. So I chose to get a house. I'm at 23 years old. I got it a couple months ago. And yeah. I'm building wealth. And in fact, some people have told me that the housing market here in Huntsville has blown up really like over the past couple of months. So I bought the house for $114,000. It's probably worth $120,000, and I haven't done anything. I've just been paying monthly. That's it. Yeah. I haven't put any other work into it, and I've already gotten more than what I put in already. So it's about being smart with that money, making the right choices. And like I said, I just see so many people get so excited about the new car. Oh, I gotta get the new car. Everyone has to get the new car. It's like, let that shit go. Ride the old dingy car. Like, you only need to get you to point A to point B to go to work. That's it. Like, put that money in somewhere that's actually going to produce results. And the car, the moment you pull it off the lot, it devalues significantly.
Yeah. Yeah, now understanding that balance. This is being so focused on things that represent physical wealth really doesn't mean much. Because, I mean, it's the same thing when you catch people and they're very used to buying clothes that look a certain way. And then you catch them, they don't even have a vehicle. And it's just like, it gets to that severe. And you're like, okay, your priorities are really, really mismatched on that kind of stuff. But the behavior is learned. That's one thing a lot of people realize. It's like it's a societal thing, it's a regional thing, and a lot of times parents instill in the kid, trying to make sure that they're, up to date on everything. And sure, all right, if you're not, you're gonna get some bullying, especially if you're in certain schools. Right? Yeah. You get some Shaq song when you're in elementary, some kid's gonna light you up. So it's like you just get certain things like that. It's like you can't, It's the way of the world, but everybody had that trek where it's like, okay, everybody got bullied over some stupid like that. Yeah. But either way it goes, you instilling that this has importance, that this materialism is going to be something, and especially if we do it to try to avoid that element. Sure, you're trying to protect them, but it's not this. You want them to still understand the value of trying to that doesn't actually have it. What has it is them establishing things and creating that barrier of wealth that helps them do things that are far greater than just look nice or have something that is nice, and you can say, oh, look at my car when I go to work. Nobody knows where you live when you're at work, so obviously that looks nice then. But
yeah, they're not going home with you. Like I said, plenty of people will judge me with my little 2000 Honda Accord. They'll think I'm some sort of loser, right? Exactly. But you get in the car with my Honda, you go to my house, 1,500 square foot house, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, and I'm 23, so what are they going to think then? They're going to completely 180 right there.
It changed. Right? The perspective changes for sure. And a lot of people don't think of it that way. And also, it's just the things you put value in. It has to be things that have longevity. I mean, a car technically does, but a house has even more. And you want to do the car after that kind of thing.
Right. Like, don't get me wrong. I said I'm not a car guy, but one car I'd like to have is a brand new Tesla. I think they're really cool, right? But I'm not going to go get $35,000 into debt when I still owe a crap ton of money on the house, and I don't make a whole lot of money to do that. So, that's why it has to wait to the future. You do the hard work now, so that in the future you can spoil yourself. You don't spoil yourself first and then do the hard work later. That makes no sense.
Yeah, exactly. trying to keep things as consistent as possible. You only make changes like that generally when they're necessary, especially for somebody that's not like a gearhead. I understand gearheads generally are going to want to buy a vehicle. That's realistic. I mean, if you are like that, buy in within your bounds. You know, don't get too out of whack with it. I know my brother. He's a gearhead. He did not do anything ridiculous until his income matched the vehicles he was able to buy, the things he really wanted. But outside of that, he kind of stayed within his realm of what he could get. And a lot of those cars he had to put a lot of work into. So a lot of them fell apart. A lot of them blew out. I mean, it was just, but I mean, he was still getting things he found joy in. He was able to work on them, etc. So it's not about an image thing. It's more like a personal thing with people like that. But you have a lot of other people pretty ignorant to things about vehicles. Just know that what names look nice, what rims look nice, what, year is a good thing. Trying to be at the newest, etc., all that stuff. Flaunting it, social media hype with that whole thing. All this stuff, all that clout, like, feels great to people, but it's like in the back burner of that, it's just a bunch of debt. So, don't get caught off the image of that, Young people online seeing these things, recognize like, oh, that car is nice. I would like to have this done. And realize that half the people that you're seeing, they're mature enough and old enough to establish the wealth to be able to buy those things. They're in their late 30s a lot of time, their 40s. You're like, oh, that guy has a 2020, Hellcat Challenger, 70-something grand car. And you're like, that's nice. The dude probably likes Challengers, likes fast cars. He also likes keeping his money together. And he probably has a really good paying job. And that car doesn't feel like a hefty toll on him. He probably didn't have to stretch the loan out the whole way to do it. He probably got 0% APR for the first year and walked out without having to put down payment because he had good credit. So you can't just look at that particular part. Because realistically, somebody who didn't have their credit together or any sort of finances young enough to even build anything that's of record wouldn't even got that car. So don't be fooled by that. It's just a lot of things when you're younger, you start to realize, and it's in a short amount of time because we're not that old in reality, but in the the time between high school and now, you catch all of that stuff within the first couple of years of being out. And you realize that's when those people you can tell focus on image, they lose their vehicles. We know somebody like that.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, we do.
That lost the vehicle.
And he was bragging so hard. He was like, oh, you guys are a bunch of losers because you don't have this car.
Exactly. The car wasn't really his.
He didn't even use his own credit for it.
Yeah, he didn't use his own credit for it. So the car was taken from him. And at that point, he was relegated to having a lot of other people be his transportation. And so it's like, well, that's something he used. That was like his chick magnet thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, and so you catch things like that. You're like, okay, well, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where you catch these people that have these highs, and these highs are established by all the crap that people were just throwing at them. Oh, here you go. Here's this. Here's that. Here's that. You know what I mean? And the best thing that a parent can do when they're in a situation like that, especially if the kid's too spoiled, take it away.
Yeah.
It gives them perspective. But better yet, don't give them something to that degree. All you need to do is get to school and back.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not that severe. But so they just don't be caught up in the image. Because that right there is going to make you desire things well beyond your means. And even if you're not giving yourself the silver spoon, you'll pull it out of people who don't have it in them. You know what I mean? If you have a parent and you're like, hey, can I get this? Maybe they can't do it, but they love you. They want to be able to, make you feel good, be happy, not be bullied or whatever. And then here you go being handed things, and then you're losing that perspective consistently. Or just buying outside of your means, creating debt consistently for things you can't get. Renting to things that you shouldn't really have. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that happens. You see people that use student loans on things that are not college related. So it's like, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but there's severe cases of this. So it's like there's a lot of things like just because you want something. That's like, if you have something that functions, just stick to it. If it works, it works.
And that college thing, that brings up a huge point right here. Is like, I remember graduating high school and everyone was like, oh, I'm going to go to Alabama. I'm going to go to Tuscaloosa. Oh, I got to go to Tuscaloosa. Oh my God. And it's just like, yeah, but you don't realize, like, unless you got a full scholarship or something, or just some sort of things where it's going to pay most of that shit, you're going to go to Tuscaloosa And and there's a common little trick colleges use. They'll tell you the tuition, right? Tell you, oh, the tuition's like 12,000, right? Oh, that's not that much, right? Right? But yeah, they don't fucking tell you, oh, you're gonna spend about another 12,000 on room and board, and so that turns into 24 grand, and then the fucking books and all the little fees, right?
Yeah.
So don't get like, I gotta go to this school and go into debt. That's foolish.
Yeah.
That is foolish. Stay in your hometown. Your hometown has a college. Go to the local college. Live with your parents. You cut your costs by 50% by not having to do room and board and meals or any of that stuff.
Exactly.
Right? So, highly recommend. Don't do this whole, I got to go to this school. Because no one gives a fuck. The moment you graduate, no one gave a fuck, really. Like, unless you went to a really, really awesome school and you got this really bomb-ass degree, it doesn't matter. Degree's a degree, whatever.
Yeah, no one's really paying attention at that point anyways. Because, I mean, obviously you can be in college, or high school, and say that, hey, I'm going here because this person went here, or whatever. Only people who are going to really care is if you got your scholarship there, your ACT score was high enough to do it. But outside of that, you're just going there and you're going to a place that has like 100,000, 200,000 people. Like, you're really insignificant in that place. So it's the simple fact that you were there that means nothing. And on top of that, a lot of people do this without even scouting if the degree is significant to get from that area.
Oh, yeah, there's also
versus like the program from a college that's local might be able to do it better. So it's one of those things too. But people get caught in image. I mean, football games fun. Yeah. Being around in the area, partying and whatnot.
I told my brother though is because he was so obsessed with going to Alabama. I was like, you could just simply like drive down to Alabama, go to a football game, or go to one of these fucking parties. You don't have to actually be at Alabama to do all that shit. Like, because you're gonna have friends that probably go that afford it or whatever. Like, have them get you.
The thing about that is weird to me is that people like they want to go to the school and getting caught up in that social behavior, but that's like one of those things that stops you from being a student really well.
Right? Yeah, it hinders you from even graduating. So you really stop lying. You're not going to the school because you want to learn. You're going to the school because you want to party. In which case, why even pay money to go party? Why don't you work a full-time job and just go party on the weekend? Yeah. There you go.
Go drive down there. You got friends. Hell, we've done that. We have people down there that we go down and hang out, and that's how you do it. You don't need to live there for that. It's not. From where we're at, it's not really that far away. But you can't be so focused on that because you get caught up in that situation where you're like, you sacrifice all that. Here you go. You have finances. That's already out the window. You didn't get a scholarship if you're in this particular situation, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
Then next thing you know, you go down there. It's a bunch of new people you ever met. More than likely, since you're moving away from home, you're some distance, so you have nobody really out there for you, especially if something goes wrong. Third thing is that you're here and you're enjoying this party life, right? Girls and sororities, guys, fraternities, and just different clubs, bars, etc. The whole scene. It's cool, but let's say that every Friday you decide to get turned, right? And you have a class in which you generally have some report done on, right? Yeah. That report you need submitted at least by Sunday, right? So you're spending your weekend or whatever getting turned, and you lose your ability to really do that thing. Sleeping in, out long, maybe a hangover, whatever it is. Then you don't do it. And that's a pretty simple formula, obviously, for disaster. But that right there is an easy thing that's they're able to track. Most people can hear that and be like, well, no, why would I go out, right? How many countless people would still do it just because they need to, they asked me to hang out. They want me to do this, And it's just constantly trying to stack up, worrying about the image. What do these things look like? And that goes into all the way back to being down in Tuscaloosa, wanting the nice car while you're down there, blowing the credit card. Yeah,
that makes it worse. Yeah, because my own little brother, he's like, I want to go to Tuscaloosa, and then on top of that shit, I want to fucking get a new $20,000 car before I go to Tuscaloosa. And I'm like, bro, you can't even afford the school, and you're gonna get $20,000 in debt on top of all that shit. Yeah. I'm like, bro.
So you're just gonna blow that. You're worried about the credit card limit. If you got that, you're freely swiping. You know what I mean? Yeah. And at this point, I refuse to believe that this person has gotten the credit card themselves, or the car. And so if they're not working, because in this situation, very commonly the person has no work ethic, so they're screwing over their parents. And here we are, full circle. Where are we at? They are constantly being given things, and they keep expecting it. And now they're in a position where they are just going to keep doing it. And now they screwed themselves.
And see, I see a lot of people talk about building generational wealth, which I'm all for. Build generational wealth, right?
Yeah.
But that's where you ride this fine line, because your kid or your grandson can really fuck that. And all your hard work gone. Just because the person's spoiled, because they don't know how to run money, because they weren't educated right.
Yeah.
All because of that.
And
that's why so many families stay where they're at. They get really high and then they collapse. Yeah. And then there is no generational wealth because the people themselves suck. They were not taught.
Keep on re-establishing it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work out well. Especially if you hand the money to someone and they're supposed to do good with it and they don't. Because that happens a lot. People get granted very big opportunities and blow it. Like opportunities that involve like 6 digits worth of money and blow it. Something that we've seen. So
yeah, we have.
And it's like sounds wild to hear that. Like somebody can get like $600,000, which I'm not specifying a specific number. I'm almost sure it was higher than this. But point is, it was blown really easily just to suit things that they wanted, and here we are with the same situation. And this person's natural discipline wasn't really there. You could see it, and it wasn't being enforced by the parents either. So same cycle. It happens the same way, no matter however way you stack it. And this is the thing. I can't even say her parents were really wealthy people. That's the thing. But the money came from another source, and that still happened like that, and it still was wasted. And it was like, here's your opportunity to create something that you didn't have. But
because like $600,000, you hand me $600,000, a couple of years, I'll be a multimillionaire with that money. I know how to. I know there's multiple ways to grow that money, right? Yeah. You don't just squander it like that. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah. So that becomes the problem with that. Is like you just, it doesn't matter whether that person has the wealth or not. It's still the same issue of discipline. If you can treat somebody like they have the silver spoon, even if the money doesn't exist, and that's the same thing that can still cause this issue. They can still cause them to believe that they can do whatever they want. Things are still freely, and then when they get something that's actually meant to be a good resource, it still gets blown. Like the things that are much more minimal before it. So you're still stuck in the same situation. So I guess the core point would be, no matter what position you are in, you have to have that discipline regardless. And whether it's self-taught, because sometimes your parents can miss that. And maybe you gather that information somewhere else, like us telling you. Or somewhere else. I mean, it's just, the general fact is that if you don't establish that sense of worth in yourself to actually go out and try to do something for yourself. Let's say your parents hand you money. Get a job anyways. Get one anyways. I know someone who did that. They didn't really need it, but they went and got the job just because they wanted to be self-sufficient. They wanted to learn this thing early. And it did a lot good for them. Like, it's just one of those things that matters. Because you just wait and doing that, you catch yourself going into the real world way later than expected for yourself, and then you end up scared of a lot of things you're being presented with. And here you are, 21, 22, asking your parents about every element. And I'm not saying that you're going to go out knowing everything, but you for sure should at least attempt to gain some knowledge about it before. I mean, something as simple as reading a book, watching a YouTube video, asking friends that have been there, asking other adults, it's just, you don't want to just be permanently ignorant about it, because the way the things are presented to you, the world is a business. All of it is, like house buying, that's a business. Going to school, giving you that ridiculously low tuition number, like you said, that's a business.
That's why they present it that way. That's why they're not going to tell you the whole price the whole year. You're the customer.
Exactly. So the whole aim is just to constantly do things in that way. You go and get a car, they're giving you a sticker number that exponentially grows quick when you're sitting down with the finance guy after you get your interest, and then these addendums, and then certain particular type of fees are going on. And it's just like, well, it's rigged. And if you stay ignorant like that, you're not ready for it. And all you see is the shiny prize. And if someone is constantly lets you get that, and you never even try to establish a discipline, you're really in for it. And you don't need that. No one needs that. So if you have a silver spoon, keep it clean. Don't let it rust.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Yeah, we're not saying it's a bad thing. Just saying don't let it get to your head and add on to that, right? Pass it down. Don't ruin it. Don't sell it. Don't take it to the pawn shop, right? That we're gonna use that metaphor. Don't take it to the pawn shop.
Yeah, at this point is like, because at that point, yeah, it's really terrible if you do that. But yeah, don't take it to the pawn shop.
Yeah, no, for real. If you have silver, don't, because they're a bunch of ripoffs. But
yeah. So that's the main point. I think this is probably the wrap up. So yeah,
pretty good first video. We're gonna explore all sorts of different topics, not just financial. So subscribe. Keep touch with us because and if you have requests, I mean, I know it's very early, but I mean, if you do, you could always we'll have an email set up eventually.
We'll sift through things to see what kind of topics fall into the categories. This is obviously the very, very beginning. So he also has another podcast, so y'all should check him out. His Indigenous podcast as well.
Yeah, especially if you Indigenous, you probably like it. But
you probably can just link it underneath. If you Indigenous, you like it.
Yeah, you'll like it, you Indigenous. But anyways, to the haters, we hate you too. We'll see you on the next one.
All right, peace.